Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. Researchers have discovered that if an exercise wheel is placed in the wild mice will choose to run on it simply for enjoyment. Around 2,000 to 3,000 luxury cars are abandoned in Dubai each year. Many of these vehicles belong to expatriates, mostly from the United Kingdom, who travel to Dubai and Abu Dhabi hoping to secure high-paying jobs. Unfortunately, after they begin earning money, they often purchase expensive items, with luxury cars at the top of the list. Some eventually struggle to keep up with the cost of living, abandon their vehicles, and simply leave the country. Swedes love eating tacos on Fridays. The tradition is known as Taco Friday. Honey never spoils. Archaeologists have found jars of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are still edible after thousands of years. Some of the earliest chewing gums were made from birch resin and other natural substances, and they can survive for thousands of years. In fact, the oldest chewing gum in the world is 9,000 years old and was recently discovered by archaeologists on the Swedish island of Orust. When a star like our sun dies, it does not explode as a supernova or collapse into a black hole. Instead, it gently sheds its outer layers, which form a beautiful cloud known as a planetary nebula, while the core of the dying star becomes a white dwarf. These nebulae can take on extraordinarily complex shapes, with rings, filaments, and glowing structures created by the expelled gases. The white dwarf left behind retains much of the star's original mass, concentrated into an object roughly the size of Earth. Although it no longer generates energy through nuclear fusion, it can remain hot and bright for billions of years as it slowly cools in space. Beavers have orange teeth because of the iron found in their tooth enamel. This mineral makes their incisors far more resistant to wear than those of most mammals, which is essential for an animal that spends much of its life cutting wood. A beaver's incisors never stop growing, so chewing on logs and branches helps keep them at the proper length. An adult beaver can fell surprisingly large trees to build dams and shelters, structures that reshape the landscape and create habitats for numerous species of animals and plants. The reason you enjoy music so much is that the human brain evolved to recognize and enjoy patterns, such as chord progressions and melodies, which in turn release dopamine. Researchers have found that music activates several brain regions associated with emotion, memory, attention, and reward. Part of its appeal comes from the combination of familiarity and surprise. The brain anticipates what might come next and gains satisfaction when those expectations are either fulfilled or broken in an interesting way. In 1925, a man in Norway invented a special cheese slicer called the ostehøvel. It was so disliked that many people in the country created special containers labeled, "Throw your cheese slicer here." Before human settlement, New Zealand had no land mammals other than 3 species of bats. Because of this evolutionary isolation, many birds occupied ecological niches that in other parts of the world are typically filled by mammals. Some species even lost the ability to fly because they faced very few land predators for millions of years. This situation gave rise to unique animals such as the kiwi and the extinct moa. The arrival of humans and introduced animals such as rats, cats, and stoats profoundly transformed the country's ecosystems and led to the disappearance of numerous native species. Al-Zahrawi was an Arab physician from the 10th century and is sometimes considered the father of surgery. He performed the first mastectomy to treat breast cancer. Guinness has estimated that 93,000 liters of beer are wasted in facial hair every year in the United Kingdom alone. That is equal to about 160,000 pints of beer, representing roughly $536,000 worth of Guinness beer wasted each year. Human meat provides less energy than many other sources of animal protein, according to an analysis conducted by researchers at the University of Brighton in England. For example, an equivalent serving of wild boar meat contains more than twice as many calories. During the Vietnam War, the United States carried out what they called Operation Popeye, in which they seeded clouds over Vietnam to extend the monsoon season. It was later declassified in 1974, and the United States' involvement in the operation became public knowledge. Jack Norworth, who wrote "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," did not attend a baseball game until 32 years after writing the song. Canada still retains 91% of the forest cover that existed at the beginning of European settlement. In addition, it is home to about 9% of the world's forests, making it one of the countries with the largest forested areas on Earth. Its vast forests provide habitat for species such as moose, black bears, wolves, and lynxes, and they also contain enormous reserves of fresh water. Some of its forested regions are so remote that they remain virtually untouched and have barely been explored by humans. Burritos are a popular food for astronauts in space because they are easy to eat and do not produce crumbs that could float around and damage equipment. In addition, tortillas stay fresh longer than traditional bread and take up very little space among a mission's supplies. For that reason, NASA has used them on various space flights for decades. Astronauts often fill them with ingredients such as chicken, beef, eggs, beans, cheese, or vegetables, allowing them to create a variety of meals without having to carry a large number of different food products. The longest conflict in human history was the Iberian Reconquista. The struggle between Christians and Muslims on the European peninsula took nearly 800 years to be resolved. The emperor penguin is the tallest and largest of all penguins. Males can grow up to 4.3 feet tall and weigh as much as 110 pounds. These remarkable birds live in some of the harshest conditions on Earth, enduring temperatures far below freezing and powerful Antarctic winds. During the breeding season, males incubate the eggs on their feet for approximately 2 months while the females are at sea feeding. Although pyramids are commonly associated with Egypt or the ancient Maya civilization, Sudan has the greatest number of surviving pyramids in the world, with 220. Most are located in the region of Meroe and were built by the rulers of the ancient kingdom of Kush, a powerful civilization that maintained close ties with Egypt for centuries. Although they are generally smaller than the famous Egyptian pyramids, they are notable for their steep slopes and their high concentration in a single area. Many people are unaware that Sudan is home to some of Africa's most important archaeological sites and preserves an extraordinary historical legacy connected to these monumental structures. A South Korean doctor named Hwang Woo-suk was the scientist who cloned a dog named Snuppy, an Afghan hound, in 2005. He also attempted human cloning, but without success. Snuppy was considered a major achievement because dogs are much more difficult to clone than many other mammals due to the unique characteristics of their reproductive biology. The dog's birth demonstrated that advanced cloning techniques could be applied to species that had previously proven especially challenging for researchers. Years later, some of Snuppy's descendants were also born through conventional reproduction, becoming part of one of the most famous cases in the history of animal cloning. More than 16,000 books and articles have been published about United States President Abraham Lincoln, more than about any other American. His life has been studied by historians, biographers, politicians, and scholars for more than a century and a half. Much of the interest stems from his role during the American Civil War, the preservation of the Union, and the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. In addition to historical studies, Lincoln has inspired countless documentaries, films, novels, and exhibitions, making him one of the most analyzed and debated figures in United States history. In 2011, a 29-year-old Australian bartender named Dan Saunders discovered an automated teller machine error that allowed him to withdraw far more money than he had in his account. During a spending spree that lasted about 4.5 months, he managed to spend approximately $1.6 million of the bank's money on lavish parties, private charter jet flights, and paying his friends college tuition. Palm trees are known to grow in western Scotland because of the effects of the Gulf Stream, which carries warmer tropical water to the area. However, palm trees are extremely difficult to grow in eastern Scotland because it is much colder. Despite being organisms with highly complex nervous systems and impressive intelligence, many species of octopuses live only about 1 to 5 years. During that brief time, they are capable of solving problems, opening containers, recognizing patterns, and even learning by observing other individuals. They also possess an extraordinary ability to camouflage themselves, thanks to specialized cells in their skin that allow them to change color and texture within seconds. In most species, reproduction marks the end of adult life. Females often spend months protecting and oxygenating their eggs without eating, while males generally die shortly after mating. Brussels sprouts have been selectively bred to be less bitter and taste better since the 1990s. Farmers and scientists achieved this change by selecting varieties with lower levels of certain compounds responsible for bitterness, without genetically modifying the plant. As a result, many of the Brussels sprouts sold today have a milder and more pleasant flavor than those eaten by previous generations. They also remain an excellent source of fiber, vitamin C, and other nutrients, which has helped increase their popularity among people who once avoided the vegetable because of its strong taste. Researchers John Gottman and Robert Levinson of the University of Washington were able to predict with remarkable accuracy whether a couple would stay together based on how one partner responded to things that excited the other. For example, if a wife says, "Look at that beautiful bird," and the husband ignores her, it is considered a strong indication that the relationship may eventually end in divorce. To celebrate America's bicentennial in 1976, a race called the Great American Horse Race was organized, stretching from New York to California. The winners of the race were a father and son duo and their mule. On June 6, 2011, an unidentified woman and man in Gatineau, Canada, died when a 441-pound bear crashed through their windshield before exiting through the rear window. The 441-pound black bear was launched into the air by a vehicle traveling ahead of the truck after the animal wandered into traffic on Highway 148. When crocodiles chase prey, they can gallop in a surprisingly horse-like manner during short bursts of speed. Although they normally move by crawling or walking close to the ground, younger and more agile crocodiles can lift their bodies and use all four legs in a rapid movement known as a gallop. This ability allows them to cover short distances on land very quickly when they need to catch prey or escape a threat. Even so, they remain far more effective hunters in the water, where they combine stealth, speed, and a powerful bite to ambush their victims. Gerard Way started My Chemical Romance after witnessing the events of September 11th on his way to work in New York City. Seeing thousands of people die before his eyes caused him to reevaluate his life and take a chance on a music career. Buildings constructed in Philadelphia were not allowed to exceed the height of the William Penn statue until 1984. For decades, this unwritten tradition kept the city skyline dominated by Philadelphia City Hall, whose tower was crowned by the massive figure of Penn. When taller skyscrapers finally began to be built, a curious superstition emerged, known as the Curse of Billy Penn, according to which the city sports teams stopped winning major championships. The legend became so popular that years later, a small statue of Penn was placed on top of a new skyscraper, which was later followed by several local sports successes. In 1983, the video game industry experienced a major crash in which video game revenues in the United States fell from $3.2 billion in 1983 to just $100 million in 1985. Nintendo is widely credited with reviving the industry through the launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Humans have been creating cave paintings for more than 45,500 years. Some of the oldest known artworks depict animals, hunting scenes, and symbols whose meanings are still debated by archaeologists. These paintings were made using natural pigments obtained from minerals, charcoal, and other materials available in the environment. In addition to their artistic value, they provide invaluable information about the lives, beliefs, and animals known to our ancestors. The fact that many have survived for tens of thousands of years makes them some of the oldest cultural records preserved by humanity. China uses cloud seeding for weather modification to create everything from blue skies during the 2008 Olympic Games to increased rainfall during droughts. Cloud seeding involves dispersing substances, such as silver iodide or other compounds, into certain clouds in an effort to encourage rain or snow formation under suitable conditions. China operates one of the largest weather modification programs in the world, using aircraft, rockets, and other systems to carry out these operations. In addition to supporting agriculture and water resource management, these techniques have also been used to reduce the risk of hailstorms and protect crops in various regions of the country. The United States Army hired Chef Boyardee during World War II for the production of military rations and required his operations to run 24 hours a day. Pringles cannot legally be called potato chips because they are not made by slicing potatoes. Instead, they are made from a dough formed with potato-derived ingredients similar to those used in some dehydrated mashed potato products, along with starches and other components. This mixture is carefully molded to create its distinctive, uniform, curved shape, something that is difficult to achieve with conventional potato slices. Its design allows the pieces to fit neatly on top of one another inside the cylindrical container, reducing the amount of broken product during transportation. The distinctive Pringles shape is so recognizable that it even has a mathematical name, a hyperbolic paraboloid. Australia is moving northward at a rate of 2.7 inches, or 7 centimeters, per year. Since 1994, it has shifted by more than 5 feet. The writers of Star Trek: The Next Generation actually offered Robin Williams a role as a man named Berlinghoff Rasmussen in the episode A Matter of Time. He would have played a fast-talking, used car salesman-style time traveler who turns out to be a con artist. Williams had to turn down the role in order to film Hook. In 1780, during an event known as the Dark Day, New England was plunged into darkness as a result of Canadian wildfires combined with unfavorable atmospheric conditions. Because of the lack of light, candles were needed during the daytime to provide illumination. Parts of New Hampshire were covered in ash up to 6 inches deep. In 1982, Delta Airlines employees raised $30 million to purchase a new Boeing 767 as a sign of gratitude and appreciation to the company during difficult times in the airline industry. There's a type of rock called pudding stone, which consists of rounded and colorful pebbles embedded in a cemented matrix. It is said to be named after Christmas pudding, also known as figgy pudding, because of its occasional resemblance to the dried fruit dessert, especially when polished. In 2013, a couple walking their dog in California discovered 8 coffee cans containing more than 1,427 gold coins worth over $10 million, a find now known as the Saddle Ridge Hoard. The original source of the treasure remains unknown. When the sport of basketball was in its early days, tall players were believed to be too clumsy to play. All of that changed when a 6'10" center named George Mikan arrived at DePaul University. Mikan practiced his layups with either hand, and his teammates simply passed him the ball whenever he was near the basket. Emperor Hirohito, Japan's leader during World War II, was an avid marine biologist who is credited with describing dozens of new species of crabs, starfish, sea spiders, and ascidians. There is a popular Caribbean drink called peanut punch, made with peanut butter, milk, and sugar. Some people also add white rum or stout beer to give it an extra kick. A man named Uba Butler created a fake restaurant called The Shed at Dulwich and managed to make it the #1 rated restaurant in London by writing fake reviews about it on TripAdvisor. This exposed how vulnerable review websites can be to manipulation, despite claims of major investments in technology designed to stop fraudsters. A team of students from the University of Victoria in Canada discovered the remains of an ancient village on Traquair Island. They also discovered that the village was 10,000 years older than the pyramids and that it was the oldest settlement in North America. Rikard Öste developed oat milk while studying lactose intolerance at Lund University in Sweden. His work sought to find a nutritious alternative to dairy products for people who could not easily digest lactose. That research led to the creation of an oat-based beverage that eventually became popular far beyond its original purpose. Decades later, oat milk became one of the most widely consumed plant-based milk alternatives in the world and is used in cafes, restaurants, and homes across many countries. In 1995, a hospital in Memphis anonymously received a $1 million McDonald's Monopoly game piece through the mail. McDonald's paid the hospital the $50,000 prize over a period of 20 years. It was later discovered that the game piece had been obtained as part of a years-long fraud scheme and was mailed to the hospital by the leader of the operation. A morning glory cloud is a rare meteorological phenomenon, a cloud formation that can stretch for more than 620 miles. These impressive clouds often appear as enormous rolling tubes moving slowly across the sky and can extend as far as the eye can see. One of the most famous places to observe them is the Gulf of Carpentaria region in northern Australia, where they occur frequently enough to attract pilots and meteorologists from around the world. The air currents associated with these clouds can generate strong updrafts, allowing some glider pilots to travel great distances by taking advantage of the phenomenon. According to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, regularly drinking coffee reduces the risk of developing kidney stones. Various studies have found that both caffeinated and decaffeinated coffee are associated with a lower likelihood of forming certain types of kidney stones, possibly because they increase urine production and help flush out substances that could crystallize in the kidneys. Kidney stones affect millions of people around the world and can vary greatly in size, from tiny grains to formations large enough to require medical treatment. Staying well hydrated remains one of the most important recommendations for reducing the risk of developing them. During the 1800s in New York City, pigs roamed freely and ate garbage in the streets. When the city government attempted to ban them in 1821, pig owners refused and rioted. causing the government to suspend its efforts. For the next 28 years, owners continued to riot whenever the city attempted to ban pigs. Police departments in southeastern China have begun recruiting squirrels as alternative drug detection units instead of the usual canines because their sense of smell and climbing abilities are superior. The most expensive drug in the world is Zolgensma, a gene therapy used to treat a rare childhood disease called spinal muscular atrophy. Its cost exceeds $2 million for a single dose. The treatment is designed to correct the genetic cause of the disease, has demonstrated high effectiveness in many patients, and can significantly improve quality of life with a single administration. Algae oil is low in saturated fat and high in healthy fats. It also has a higher smoke point than olive oil. In addition, it is a source of omega-3 fatty acids similar to those found in certain fish, but obtained directly from the algae that form the foundation of the marine food chain. Its flavor is generally more neutral than that of many vegetable oils, allowing it to be used in a wide variety of recipes without significantly altering the taste of foods. Because of these characteristics, it has attracted interest both from the food industry and from people seeking alternatives to traditional cooking oils. Blackjack Pizza was founded in 1983 by a former Domino's employee named Vince Schmuel, who wanted to give Colorado an alternative to his former employer. He named the pizza restaurants after the game of blackjack to suggest that it was fast food, and because blackjack and dominoes are both games. Roosters have built-in hearing protection to keep themselves from going deaf from their own crowing. Research has shown that when they crow, part of their ear canal closes while soft tissue near the ear helps reduce the intensity of the sound they receive. This adaptation is especially useful because a rooster's crow can reach noise levels comparable to those of power tools at close range. Thanks to this natural mechanism, they can repeatedly produce their loud calls without suffering the hearing damage a human would experience from constant exposure to the same volume. Humans actually possess the little-known ability to learn how to observe their surroundings through echolocation. By making clicking sounds with the tongue, people can bounce sound waves off nearby objects, and the resulting echo reveals the approximate size and distance of obstacles. Anyone with normal hearing can learn this skill. Female North Atlantic right whales lower their voices to a whisper when communicating with their calves to prevent predators from hearing them. Scientists observed that mothers and calves use much softer calls than those used by other members of the species, a strategy that helps reduce the likelihood of being detected during the earliest stages of life. The calves stay very close to their mothers for months while learning how to swim, feed, and navigate. This behavior is especially important because young calves are more vulnerable to natural threats and require constant protection during their early development. There is an extinct and isolated volcanic crater in Papua New Guinea that is home to more than 40 unique species of mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, including the world's smallest parrot. This location, known as Mount Bosavi Crater, remained virtually isolated from the outside world for thousands of years, allowing many species to evolve with little contact from predators or competitors. Scientific expeditions have discovered animals with unusual behaviors and species found nowhere else on Earth. The dense rainforest covering the crater also supports a great diversity of insects, plants, and small vertebrates that continue to be studied by researchers. Sharks do not produce sounds in any of their species. None of them have organs capable of generating sound. Unlike many bony fish, sharks lack a swim bladder, a structure that in other species can play a role in sound production. Instead of communicating through vocalizations, they rely primarily on their highly developed senses, including the detection of movement in the water, chemical signals, and electrical fields generated by other animals. Their ability to perceive vibrations over great distances allows them to locate prey and respond to changes in their environment without the need to produce audible calls or sounds. Cascatelli is a new pasta shape that was invented in 2021 by podcaster Dan Pashman to maximize sauce retention, ease of forkability, and consistency when bitten. A man from Arizona found a letter addressed to Santa Claus attached to a deflated balloon while hiking. He read the letter and fulfilled the little girl's wish list, even though she lived in Mexico. A 28-year-old kidnapping victim was jailed after attempting to extort his kidnappers. He told them, quote, "Call me if you want to settle a trial, or you hand over some money, or you spend 20 years in federal prison." For several years, a massive invasion of Burmese pythons has been taking place in the Florida Everglades. They have eaten virtually every mammal in sight and have no effective natural predators in the region. Studies have documented steep declines in some populations of raccoons, opossums, rabbits, and other small mammals in areas where these snakes have become established. Burmese pythons can grow to lengths of several yards and consume a surprising variety of prey, including birds, reptiles, and even young deer. Because of their ecological impact, authorities and biologists conduct capture and monitoring programs in an effort to control their spread within one of North America's most important ecosystems. Nikola Tesla never married, but he admitted to falling in love with a very special white pigeon that visited him regularly. He stated that he loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and that while he had her, there was purpose in his life. Tesla's lifelong bachelorhood was likely due to his belief that intimacy would interfere with his scientific research. Actor Colin Firth spent 2 years in the Canadian wilderness in 1988, where he worked as a carpenter and lived in a cabin with his then-wife, Meg Tilly. Looking back on the experience, Firth said he would not recommend it as a career move. Contrary to popular belief, the opposite is actually true. A frog that is gradually heated in water will jump out, while a frog placed directly into boiling water will die immediately and will not jump. Experiments conducted more than a century ago showed that frogs generally try to escape when they detect a gradual increase in temperature that reaches dangerous levels. The story of the frog remaining motionless while the water heats up became popular as a metaphor for failing to react to problems that worsen little by little. But it does not accurately describe the normal behavior of these animals. Frogs have highly sensitive sensory systems that allow them to detect changes in their environment and respond quickly to many threats. Mangoes belong to the same botanical family as poison ivy, and their peels contain compounds related to urushiol, the substance responsible for the allergic reactions caused by that plant. For this reason, some especially sensitive individuals may experience skin irritation after handling the peel or sap of the fruit. However, the flesh of the mango is safe for the vast majority of people and is enjoyed throughout the world. Mangoes have been cultivated for thousands of years in South Asia, and there are now hundreds of varieties that differ in size, color, aroma, and flavor. When the moon is directly overhead, you weigh slightly less. This is because the moon's gravity exerts a small pull on your body, imperceptibly reducing the force with which Earth attracts you toward its surface. The effect is extremely small, and no human could notice it without very sensitive instruments. This same gravitational pull is responsible for ocean tides, which raise and lower enormous amounts of water around the planet. The moon's gravity also causes slight deformations in Earth's crust, making the surface rise and fall by a few inches as our natural satellite orbits the planet. Around 1 million dogs have been named primary beneficiaries in their owners' wills in the United States. However, pets cannot inherit through wills because the law considers them personal property rather than people. Australia was home to mammal-like reptiles that lived before the dinosaurs, and some of these mammal-like reptiles eventually evolved into modern mammals. Fossils discovered in Australia have helped scientists better understand this important evolutionary transition, which took place over hundreds of millions of years. These animals possessed a mixture of reptilian and mammalian characteristics, including different forms of dentition and gradual changes in jaw structure. Over time, their descendants gave rise to the first true mammals. In 1962, an Englishman named Brendan Grimshaw purchased a deserted island in the Seychelles, in the Somali Sea region of the Indian Ocean northeast of Madagascar, and settled there for the rest of his life. He planted more than 16,000 trees, attracting countless species, and ultimately transformed the island into a national park. A New York man named Tayyebe Swami once bought a $5 bottle of orange juice. His wife sent him back because it was too expensive and was on sale for $2.50 elsewhere. On a whim, he bought 2 lottery tickets with the refunded money and won $315.3 million. An octa is a unit of measurement equal to 1/8 of the sky. Meteorological staff use octas when forecasting cloudy conditions. This system makes it possible to quickly estimate what percentage of the sky is covered by clouds by observing the sky and dividing it into 8 equal parts. For example, 0 octas indicates a completely clear sky, while 8 octas means total cloud cover. Even though meteorologists today have satellites and advanced observation tools, octas remain a useful and widely used reference in weather reports around the world. To obtain silk from silkworms, the worms are boiled or gassed inside their cocoons. It takes 6,600 cocoons, equivalent to 1 kilogram or about 2.2 pounds of silk to produce it. Each cocoon is made from a single, continuous silk filament that can reach hundreds of yards in length if carefully unwound. Silk production has a history spanning several thousand years and played a fundamental role in trade between Asia and Europe through the famous Silk Road. Because of its combination of lightness, softness, and strength, silk remains one of the most prized and valuable natural fabrics in the world. Many blind people have trouble falling asleep because their bodies cannot distinguish between day and night, causing their melatonin levels to be affected. This occurs primarily in people with total blindness who cannot perceive light, since light is one of the most important signals the body uses to synchronize its internal biological clock. As a result, some may develop circadian rhythm disorders, causing their sleep schedules to gradually shift over time. Diamonds were first discovered and mined in India more than 3,000 years ago. India remained the world's primary source of diamonds until the 18th century. For much of that time, diamonds extracted from Indian rivers and alluvial deposits were considered among the most valuable gemstones in the world and reached markets throughout Asia, the Middle East, and Europe through extensive trade networks. Several of the most famous gems in history, including the Koh-i-Noor, originated in India. The situation changed when major diamond deposits were discovered elsewhere, particularly in Brazil and later in Africa, completely transforming the international diamond trade. The legendary film and television actress Betty White held the title of Honorary Mayor of Hollywood, starting in 1955. Betty White also admitted to having cosmetic surgery before beginning work on the 1985 television show The Golden Girls, even though the show was about aging. The average lifespan of a Major League Baseball is only 5 to 7 pitches. Umpires frequently replace baseballs when they show marks, dirt, or any wear that could affect their performance during play. As a result, dozens of different baseballs may be used in a single game. Before each game, new baseballs are also prepared with a special substance known as rubbing mud, which reduces their shine and improves grip for pitchers. Many retired baseballs end up as souvenirs for fans or are used by teams and organizations for training and practice purposes. During the 2000s, there were 3 separate South American adaptations of the television series Married with Children that lasted for hundreds of episodes, beginning in 2004 with a Colombian version, Casados con Hijos. In 2020, a 64-year-old man accidentally ejected from the cockpit of a French fighter jet while traveling at more than 320 miles per hour after receiving a flight in the aircraft as a gift from his coworkers. Wally Conran said that inventing the Labradoodle was one of his greatest regrets in life. He said they were intended to be guide dogs for blind people and not fashion accessories. He also said that he opened a Pandora's box and unleashed a Frankenstein's monster. Satellite phones are illegal in certain countries, such as India and China. This is intended to allow governments to regulate communications. Penalties range from confiscation to prison time, as some governments view their unauthorized use as a political or security concern. The United States Constitution did not include any provision for replacing vice presidents who died or left office before completing their terms. As a result, the office was vacant for nearly 38 years throughout the nation's history. Seagulls can live for nearly 50 years. Although many do not reach such advanced ages in the wild, some species have demonstrated remarkable longevity thanks to their adaptability. These birds are opportunistic and can feed on fish, crustaceans, insects, small animals, and even human food waste. They are also notably intelligent and have been observed using complex techniques to obtain food, such as dropping shellfish onto hard surfaces to crack their shells open. Disney executives wanted Dead Poet Society to be called Sultans of Swing, and instead of learning about poetry, the boys would have been passionate about dancing, with the storyline focusing primarily on the character of Mr. Keating. In 1986, Prince recorded an album under the pseudonym Camille, a female alter ego represented through Prince's wide vocal range, intending to release the album without any acknowledgement of his identity. After returning to Earth, the Apollo 11 astronauts embarked on a 38-day goodwill tour around the world, visiting 29 cities in 24 countries at the request of President Nixon. They wanted to emphasize that the moon landing had been accomplished not only for the United States, but for all humanity. Rats, gerbils, mice, birds, fish, monkeys, and chimpanzees prefer to work for their food rather than receive it for free. Of all the animals studied, only cats did not display this behavior, preferring instead to be served. In-N-Out has kept its menu virtually unchanged for more than 50 years, with the exception of the secret menu concept that includes animal-style fries and burgers, which began during the 1960s. The Leatherman was a homeless man dressed in a leather suit who followed the same 365-mile route for more than 30 years. He stopped in towns to obtain supplies and lived in various caves. When archaeologists excavated his grave in 2011, they found no human remains, only coffin nails. Researchers at the University of St. Andrews discovered that orcas can imitate human speech. They are capable of realistically copying words such as hello and goodbye, as well as the sounds made by other orcas. The longest boxing match in history was fought by Andy Bowen and Jack Burke on April 6, 1893. The 110-round contest lasted 7 hours and 19 minutes until both fighters were unable to leave their corners. Burke broke every bone in both of his hands and was bedridden for weeks. Neil Armstrong completed nearly all of the coursework required for a master's degree when he joined the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in the early 1960s. Just 1 semester short of graduation, he returned to the University of Southern California after his moon landing in 1970 and delivered a 1-hour seminar on the technical aspects of the Apollo lunar module landing in order to receive his master's degree. There is an island in eastern Africa about half the size of a football field called Magingo that is home to roughly 500 full-time residents. The island even has its own pharmacy, bars, and cafes. There were only 21 days between the first atomic bomb test on July 16th and the bombing of Hiroshima on August 6th during the summer of 1945. The Great Gatsby was largely considered forgettable and a commercial failure when it was published in 1925. It was only after World War II, during which free copies of novels were distributed to American soldiers overseas, that the book was re-examined and became a cornerstone of American high school curricula. Shaquille O'Neal was offered and turned down the role of John Coffey in The Green Mile. The first female presidential candidate in United States history was Victoria Woodhull. She was a suffragist, women's rights activist, businesswoman, and political activist. Unfortunately, her campaign faced obstacles because of her age and her imprisonment on obscenity charges shortly before the election. A radar scan of Shakespeare's tomb confirmed that his skull is not inside it. The tomb itself mysteriously does not bear his name, but instead carries the following curse. Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones. North Korea plays basketball by its own rules. Slam dunks are worth 3 points. Baskets scored during the final 3 minutes are worth 8 points. 3-point shots are worth 4 points if they go in cleanly without touching the rim, and 1 point is deducted for every missed free throw. Elephants are incapable of jumping. Unlike most mammals, the bones in an elephant's legs all point straight downward, meaning they lack the spring-like structure needed to lift themselves off the ground. Their anatomy is designed to support enormous amounts of weight and to travel efficiently over long distances, not to jump. Despite this, elephants can move surprisingly fast and reach speeds of nearly 25 miles per hour over short distances. They also have specialized pads on their feet that cushion their steps and allow them to walk much more quietly than one might expect from such a large animal. Vortex One was the only state-sponsored rock festival in United States history. It took place in Oregon during a visit by President Nixon in support of the Vietnam War and served as a distraction for anti-war protesters. The bronze panels of the September 11th Memorial, which bear the names of the victims, have their own heating and cooling systems so that they are never too hot or too cold to the touch. Princess Leia's hairstyle in Star Wars was inspired by the women of the Mexican Revolution during the early 20th century. The creator of the saga, George Lucas, was looking for a look that felt historical and distinctive, moving away from the futuristic styles common in science fiction at the time. To design Leia's appearance, references were taken from photographs of women known as soldaderas, who played an important role during the Mexican conflict. Over the years, the princess's distinctive side buns became one of the most recognizable hairstyles in popular culture, and an inseparable symbol of the character Princess Leia. There is an international treaty that prohibits the use of environmental modification techniques or weather warfare. It is called the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or Any Other Hostile Use of Environmental Modification Techniques, an agreement adopted during the Cold War to prevent natural phenomena from being used as weapons. The treaty prohibits the hostile use of techniques capable of altering the climate, oceans, atmosphere, or geological processes when they may cause widespread, long-lasting, or severe effects. It emerged in part because of international concern over weather modification experiments conducted during armed conflicts. One rotten apple in a group will release ethylene, a hydrocarbon gas that will spoil all the other apples in the group. Ethylene is a natural plant hormone that accelerates the ripening process in many fruits. For this reason, a single overripe apple can cause nearby fruits to age more quickly than normal. This same effect is used commercially to control the ripening of products such as bananas, pears, and tomatoes during transportation and storage. Keeping fruits separated and in cool locations can help extend their freshness and reduce food waste. The world's longest burning light bulb, the Centennial Light, has been illuminated since 1901. It is almost never turned off, is located at 4550 East Avenue in Livermore Communication, and is maintained by the Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department. There is a small leprechaun house in the roots of a tree at Disneyland next to the Indiana Jones attraction. The leprechaun is known as the Little Man of Disneyland, from the book of the same name published in 1955, the same year the theme park opened. Asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral that must be mined, and millions of tons of it are still mined today. It is made up of microscopic fibers that are extremely resistant to heat, electricity, and corrosion, characteristics that led to its use in construction materials, insulation, and numerous industrial products throughout much of the 20th century. Although many countries have restricted or banned its use because of the health risks associated with inhaling its fibers, mining continues in some regions of the world. Asbestos deposits are found in certain types of rock and can extend across large geological areas, allowing for commercial extraction for more than a century. Lead shielding during an X-ray is not only unnecessary, but it can actually expose a person to even more radiation, and it is no longer endorsed by the American Association of Physicists in Medicine. Modern X-ray equipment uses much lower doses than those used decades ago, and is designed to direct radiation very precisely toward the area that needs to be examined. In addition, current systems automatically adjust exposure levels to obtain high-quality images, and in some cases, an improperly placed lead shield can interfere with that process. As a result, several medical organizations have updated their recommendations to reflect technological advances and modern radiation safety practices. The farthest the human eye can see is approximately 3 miles, or just under 5 kilometers, which is the point at which Earth's curvature causes the surface to disappear from view, assuming perfect 20/20 vision. The song Rock Your Body was originally intended for Michael Jackson's 2001 album Invincible, but he turned it down. The song went to Justin Timberlake, who included it on his debut album, Justified. Virginia groundhogs and woodchucks are the same thing. There is no difference between them, and the terms are interchangeable. Both names are used to refer to the same animal, scientifically known as Marmota monax. This species belongs to the squirrel family and is one of the largest rodents in North America. Groundhogs are excellent diggers and build complex underground burrows with multiple entrances, sleeping chambers, and spaces used for hibernation. They are also famous for their connection to Groundhog Day, a popular tradition in which a groundhog's behavior is observed to make a symbolic prediction about the length of winter. There are at least 5 species of sharks living in the River Thames in London, and at least one of those species is venomous. Among the species recorded in the river is the spiny dogfish, known for possessing spines associated with glands that produce a venomous substance used as a defense mechanism. The presence of sharks in the Thames surprises many people, but it is a sign of the river's ecological recovery, as it suffered severe pollution problems for much of the last century. Today, the Thames is home to a wide variety of fish, birds, and aquatic mammals that have returned thanks to decades of conservation efforts and improvements in water quality. Cockroaches are bred by the millions in China, where they are used in traditional medicine and cosmetics. Some specialized facilities maintain enormous colonies of these insects because they are easy to reproduce, grow quickly, and can feed on a wide variety of organic materials. In addition to their medicinal and cosmetic uses, researchers have studied certain compounds found in cockroaches for their potential applications in biotechnology. These farms typically operate in carefully controlled environments to maintain optimal temperature and humidity conditions. Despite the reaction they often provoke, cockroaches are considered by many scientists to be among the most resilient and adaptable groups of insects on the planet. In 1746, King Gustav III of Sweden wanted to prove that coffee was harmful to health, so he ordered an experiment involving identical twins. One twin would drink large amounts of coffee every day, while the other would drink large amounts of tea every day. Ironically, both twins outlived the king and the doctors who were studying the experiment. It would have taken 125 years for the concrete used in Hoover Dam to cool if it had been poured as a single continuous mass. Instead, giant blocks and columns of concrete were poured and then cooled through a network of internal cold water pipes, dramatically reducing the cooling time. Of the 400 to 500 species of sharks, the bull shark is the only one known to expel gas. Researchers have observed that it can release air through its cloaca after ascending from deep waters, a behavior that has been rarely documented in other sharks. The bull shark is also one of the few species capable of living in both saltwater and freshwater, allowing it to be found in rivers and lakes connected to the sea. This remarkable adaptation has enabled it to travel hundreds of miles inland in some locations, making it one of the most versatile shark species on the planet. Not all rainbows contain every color. Rainbows that form at sunrise or sunset can be monochromatic rainbows that appear only red. This occurs because, when the sun is very close to the horizon, light must pass through a much larger portion of Earth's atmosphere. During that journey, much of the blue and green light is scattered, leaving red and orange tones dominant. These rainbows are relatively uncommon and can create a spectacular visual display, especially when they appear over open landscapes or after a light rain. There is currently no antidote for the bite of the blue-ringed octopus, but you can survive without lasting effects if you are placed on a ventilator after being bitten. This small octopus lives mainly in the coastal waters of Australia and parts of the Pacific Ocean. Its venom contains tetrodotoxin, a powerful neurotoxin that can cause muscle paralysis within minutes. Despite its danger, it is usually a shy animal that avoids contact with people. Its distinctive blue rings glow brightly when it feels threatened, serving as a clear warning signal to potential predators. The disease with the highest mortality rate that is not hereditary is spongiform encephalopathy, also known as prion disease, a group of transmissible brain disorders. The mortality rate is 100%. These diseases are extremely rare and can affect both humans and certain animals. Among the most well-known cases are Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans and mad cow disease in cattle. Prions are abnormal proteins that can cause other proteins in the brain to change shape, leading to progressive and severe deterioration of the nervous system. Because these diseases are so rare, most doctors never encounter a single case throughout their entire careers. There are €0 banknotes. They have no monetary value and are used as souvenirs instead. They are intended to promote tourism, and each one features a unique design related to European landmarks or events. Although they cannot be used to make purchases, they are printed by authorized companies using many of the same security features found on real banknotes, such as watermarks, holograms, and individual serial numbers. Since their introduction, hundreds of different designs have been issued honoring castles, museums, historical figures, and iconic locations, making them very popular items among collectors and travelers looking for an unusual keepsake from their visits. Scientists discover an average of 18,000 new species of life every year. Most of these discoveries involve insects, fungi, plants, and small organisms living in poorly explored regions of the planet. Tropical rainforests, coral reefs, deep caves, and remote oceanic areas continue to reveal species previously unknown to science. Despite centuries of biological research, experts estimate that millions of species still remain undescribed. Every newly identified species helps improve our understanding of evolution, ecosystems, and the complex relationships that sustain life on Earth. Automaker Audi had to design its horns for the Indian market to be louder and more durable because of how often drivers use them there. In many Indian cities, horn use is a routine part of daily driving and is commonly used to signal maneuvers, passing vehicles, or the presence of pedestrians and motorcycles. Some roads have even displayed messages such as "Horn please" on the backs of trucks for years, a practice that became characteristic of transportation in the country. Because of these conditions, certain vehicle components may experience much greater wear than in other markets. Hormel Foods, the company that manufactures canned spam, asks its employees to refer to spam emails as junk email. The company actively protects the use of its trademark and has published recommendations for years to distinguish the food product from unsolicited electronic messages. The famous canned Spam was introduced in the late 1930s and became especially popular during World War II because of its long shelf life. Today, it is sold in numerous countries and comes in multiple varieties with different flavors and ingredients. NBA player JaVale McGee and his mother, former WNBA player Pamela McGee, are the only mother and son duo in history to win Olympic gold medals. The Dubai Mall is the largest shopping and entertainment center in the world, located in the heart of Dubai. The total area of the complex exceeds 12.9 million square feet. The interior of the Great Pyramids of Giza remains at 68 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year. The enormous mass of stone that makes up these structures acts as a natural insulator, softening the drastic temperature changes that occur between day and night in the desert. While the heat outside can be intense during the day and drop considerably at night, the internal chambers maintain much more stable conditions. This ability to regulate temperature has contributed to the preservation of the interior spaces for thousands of years and continues to surprise archaeologists and engineers today. Anterograde amnesia is a condition in which a person completely forgets very recent events but can still learn and retain new skills. This happens even though they forget each day that they learned those skills the day before. Some patients have shown steady improvement in tasks such as drawing, solving puzzles, or performing specific movements, even while insisting they have never practiced them before. This phenomenon helped scientists discover that the brain stores memories and skills in different systems. Thanks to these cases, researchers gained a better understanding of how different regions of the brain contribute to memory and learning, fundamentally changing the study of modern neurology. Modern fruit is becoming too sweet for zoo animals after years of selective breeding and cultivation, to the point that some zoos have reduced or eliminated certain fruits from the diets of various animals. Many commercially grown fruits contain higher sugar levels than their wild counterparts, so species such as primates, sloths, and other mammals may consume them only in moderation or have them replaced with vegetables and foods more similar to what they would find in nature. Some zoos even use leaves, shoots, and fibrous vegetables to better mimic the natural diets of their animals. There is a museum in Japan called Shinsekikan, which translates to Hall of Curious Rocks. It contains nearly 1,700 unusual rocks, 900 of which resemble human faces. The British Post Office falsely prosecuted more than 700 postmasters for fraud and theft because of a defective computer system. The cases constitute the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British legal history, spanning a period of more than 20 years. Holding urine for too long can cause kidney failure in rare and extreme cases, especially if it becomes a repeated problem or results in a prolonged blockage of the urinary system. More commonly, delaying urination for extended periods can increase the risk of urinary tract infections, bladder discomforts, and difficulty emptying the bladder properly. The human bladder can expand considerably, but it is not designed to remain full for long periods on a regular basis. Health professionals generally recommend responding to the body's natural signals and maintaining proper hydration to support healthy urinary function. The Amazon river dolphin is a rare and unique freshwater dolphin known for its distinctive pink color and flexible neck. Unlike most marine dolphins, its neck vertebrae are not fused, allowing it to move its head from side to side with great ease. This adaptation is especially useful for navigating among trees and flooded vegetation during the flood season in the Amazon basin. Its color can range from gray to an intense shade of pink, and some individuals become pinker as they age. On May 7, 2005, a student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology organized a time travel convention in the hope of meeting time travelers from the future. Unfortunately, nobody from the future showed up, even though 300 people attended the event. The convention also featured lectures by notable professors and faculty members from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The event also inspired the musical called Time Travelers Convention. Gabe Saunier began working as a janitor at an elementary school in Louisiana. One day, in 2008, inspired by the school's principal to pursue a career in teaching, Gabe decided to return to school. He was 44 years old when he began earning his degree in education. After becoming a teacher and continuing to advance in his career, he eventually became the principal of the very same elementary school. The ducktail was a popular men's hairstyle during the 1950s, in which the sides of the hair were combed back to resemble the rear end of a duck. Actor Bela Lugosi, famous for portraying Count Dracula in the 1931 film, was buried in his full Dracula costume when he died in 1956 in Culver City, California. Lugosi also played Dracula in a Broadway production of Bram Stoker's novel before the film was made. Because the trademarks became too generic, meaning the companies could lose their trademark rights, Transformers no longer transform on packaging or in advertising. Instead, they are described as convertible. The ancient Egyptians and Greeks used electric fish to treat arthritis, gout, and other ailments. Some species, such as electric rays, can generate shocks strong enough to produce a temporary numbing sensation. Ancient writings describe how these animals were placed on painful areas of the body in hopes of relieving symptoms. Although their methods were primitive, some historians view this practice as a distant precursor to certain modern therapies that use electrical stimulation to treat specific conditions. Some salamanders can regenerate their entire bodies. They are celebrated as champions of regeneration, displaying a remarkable ability to regrow tissues, organs, or even entire body parts. According to Motherly, millennial parents spend 3 times more time with their children than men did 2 generations ago. In 1982, 43% of fathers admitted they had never changed a diaper. Today, that number has dropped by only about 3%. In a study conducted by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, it was found that more than 17 million adults in the United States had an alcohol use disorder, and that the 5 occupations with the highest rates of alcohol abuse are miners, construction workers, food service workers, lawyers, and physicians. Philippe Kahn invented the first camera phone in 1997. The first photograph he took was of his newborn daughter, Sophie. During World War II, only 30 to 40% of the German army was mechanized. The rest depended on railways or horse-drawn transportation. Jennifer Lawrence was discovered by a modeling scout in New York City when she was only 14 years old. But she turned down the offer because she did not want to become a model. Black lemurs in Madagascar catch giant red millipedes and rub themselves with them to get high and protect themselves from most predators. The millipedes are also used as a pesticide to keep away mosquitoes that carry malaria. The millipedes can then crawl away mostly unharmed until another lemur catches them again. The financial crisis of 2008 caused a significant coin shortage in the United States. The crisis led many people to hoard their loose change, reducing the number of coins in circulation. As a result, the Federal Reserve had to increase coin production to meet demand. During the first days of a baby deer's life, known as a fawn, it remains motionless and spends most of its time alone, aside from brief visits from its mother. Because they stay still, they are protected from predators, and humans should not approach them. During this stage, their spotted coat provides excellent camouflage among grass, leaves, and forest vegetation. The mother usually stays away for much of the day so as not to attract predators to her young, and returns periodically to feed it. Many people mistakenly believe that a lone fawn has been abandoned, when, in reality, this behavior is part of a natural survival strategy that has helped the species endure for thousands of years. Contrary to popular belief, a camel's hump does not store water. It actually stores fat. The camel uses this fat as a source of energy when food is scarce. If a camel uses up the fat stored in its hump, the hump will become limp and droop, and with proper food and rest, it will eventually return to normal. The placebo effect is so powerful in the United States that pharmaceutical companies are struggling to get painkillers through clinical trials. In some pain studies, a significant portion of participants report improvements even when they receive a treatment with no active ingredients. Researchers believe that factors such as patient expectations, confidence in the treatment, and interactions with medical staff can influence the perception of pain. This phenomenon is so important that modern trials are carefully designed to distinguish between the real effects of a medication and improvements associated with the placebo effect. Studebaker created the world's largest living advertisement in 1938 by planting 8,000 pine trees to spell out the word Studebaker as seen from the sky. Although the company has been gone for more than 50 years, that pine tree logo still survives and is even listed on the United States National Register of Historic Places. The Red Hot Chili Peppers recorded their album in the mansion where Harry Houdini supposedly once lived. The band wanted to record in an unusual environment to enhance their creative process. Drummer Chad Smith was convinced the house was haunted and refused to stay there. E. Henry Kanoka was a former collegiate tennis and basketball star. He applied for a job with the Central Intelligence Agency. With little more than his athletic trophies, 2 years of Navy service during World War II, and the ability to speak Russian and an obscure Chinese dialect. He got the job, and by the time he retired in 1977, he was serving as acting director of the Central Intelligence Agency. In 2019, billionaire Robert F. Smith paid off the student loan debt of about 400 graduates of Morehouse College. 4 months later, he paid off the student loan debt of all the graduates' parents. The year 1923 in eastern Canada became known as the Year of Free Beef, when the maritime provinces switched from driving on the left side of the road to the right. Oxen could not be retrained to walk on the right side, so many were sent to slaughter, causing beef prices to drop dramatically. The antlers of deer and moose fall off every year and grow back the following year, and they are not a permanent part of the skeleton, unlike the horns of cattle, sheep, and similar animals. During the growth stage, antlers are covered by a soft skin known as velvet, which supplies them with blood and nutrients. Once they reach their full size, this tissue sheds and exposes the hardened bone beneath. Antlers are among the fastest growing structures in the animal kingdom, and in some large species can grow several inches per week during the development season. Mercator maps were never intended to be general-purpose world maps. The enormous distortion of geographic geometry is a side effect of the map's special feature, simple marine navigation. A route following any constant compass direction is represented on the map as a straight line. Betty Crocker was not a real person. In 1921, Gold Medal Flour developed a warm personality to represent its brand after a promotion for shoppers, and they created her. The last name was chosen to honor a former employee. Flying squirrels glow bright pink with blue ears, noses, and feet under ultraviolet light. This phenomenon, known as biofluorescence, was documented by researchers who examined specimens using ultraviolet light and observed surprising colors that are invisible to the naked eye. Although the purpose of this characteristic is still not fully understood, scientists have proposed that it may be related to communication between individuals, nighttime camouflage, or recognition of members of the same species. Biofluorescence has also been found in other animals, including certain amphibians, fish, reptiles, and marsupials, suggesting that this phenomenon is more widespread in nature than previously believed. The crash at Crush was a one-day publicity stunt in the state of Texas that took place on September 15, 1896, in which two trains collided head-on at high speed and no admission fee was charged. Canada has a special postal code for Santa Claus. It is H0H0H0. Technicolor movies were filmed on 3 separate strips of film, with the image divided by a prism into 3 color images. Each strip was developed and dyed with a complementary primary color, and the 3 strips were then laminated together to create a full-color motion picture. The pea crab is a tiny parasitic crab that lives inside oysters and other shellfish. A male pea crab will rub against the edge of a shellfish containing a female pea crab for hours until the shellfish opens and allows him to enter. There is a psychological phenomenon called koro, in which individuals believe that their penis has disappeared, causing panic and anxiety in those who experience it. There is a maid cafe in Japan where the maids pretend to be your wives. They prepare a home-cooked meal while wearing bikinis. The cafe has been operating for more than 7 years. Flowers have nectar-producing glands called nectaries. These glands are commonly found at the base of flowers, where they produce nectar as a reward for pollinators. This sugar-rich liquid attracts bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, and many other animals that carry pollen from one flower to another while feeding. Some plants have evolved very specific shapes, colors, and scents to attract particular pollinators. In some cases, nectaries can also be found outside the flowers, on leaves or stems, where they help attract beneficial insects that protect the plant from potential herbivores. In 1933, Albert Einstein, who had left Germany for the United States, suggested the formation of the International Relief Association, now known as the International Rescue Committee. It has provided assistance to millions of refugees and displaced people in about 40 countries. Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Jimmy Johnson and singer Janis Joplin attended high school together in Port Arthur, Texas. Johnson said that she did not like athletes because they used to make fun of her. He gave Joplin the nickname Beat Weeds. This was in the late 1950s, before the hippie movement with which Joplin was often associated. Benjamin Franklin never suggested that a turkey should be used as the national bird of the United States. However, he did write a letter criticizing the use of the bald eagle as the symbol of a fraternal society, stating that the bird was lazy, a complete coward of bad moral character, and that the turkey was far more respectable. Canada has a remote island in Nova Scotia called Sable Island. The Canadian government planted 70,000 trees on the 26-mile-long sandbar, and only one survived, a scraggly pine tree that is decorated for Christmas every year. Canada goose eggs are often coated with corn oil as a population control method. The oil blocks oxygen exchange through the shell and prevents the embryo from developing. Simply removing or destroying the eggs can cause the geese to lay replacement eggs. This wildlife management technique is known as egg oiling. The United States government takes forgotten money, such as unclaimed checks, and publishes it online so that the owner can claim it in the future. The fairy tale paradise known as Cockaigne was first mentioned in the text Fablio de Cocagne around 1250 during the medieval era. It was an imaginary land of abundance in medieval mythology where physical comforts and pleasures were always immediately available. In Cockaigne, abbots are beaten by their monks, nuns are turned upside down to expose their backsides, and cheese rains from the sky. When Mount Vesuvius destroyed Pompeii, the bodies of its citizens did not turn to stone. Instead, their bodies were encased in debris, which hardened over time, leaving behind hollow cavities. During early excavations, these cavities were filled with a plaster-like material, creating detailed replicas. Oysters in the Chesapeake Bay used to be capable of filtering excess nutrients from the entire volume of water in the estuary in just 3 or 4 days because of their thriving population. However, today it would take them about a year. The classic image of a ninja dressed entirely in black comes from the convention of portraying ninjas using the costumes worn by stagehands in traditional Japanese kabuki theater. Research has shown that elephants can hear approaching clouds and sense when storms are on the way. Their large ears are capable of interpreting sounds that human ears cannot detect. Elephant ear canals actually allow them to perceive infrasonic waves, which are much longer wavelengths than those the average human ear can hear. The only copies of Haiti's Declaration of Independence are housed in the National Archives of the United Kingdom in Kew. The 2 copies of the original printed version were discovered by Duke University graduate student Julia Gaffield in the National Archives between 2010 and 2011. In Norse mythology, there is no indication that dwarves had anything to do with being short in stature. They were known for having a completely dark appearance and for living underground in complex mines and forges. Number 89 was the last number between 0 and 99 that had never been used in a Major League Baseball game. After more than a century of history and nearly 20,000 players, it was finally worn by Venezuelan pitcher Miguel Yajure when he made his debut with the New York Yankees in 2020. Since then, every possible number from 0 to 99 has appeared at least once in an official Major League Baseball game. The sensation of being awake when you are actually asleep is a disorder called paradoxical insomnia. People who experience it often believe they spent much of the night awake, even though sleep studies show they were asleep for considerable periods of time. This discrepancy between perception and reality can create frustration and concern about sleep quality. Specialists consider it to be a disturbance in the way the brain perceives and remembers sleep rather than a complete absence of rest. Because of this, some people are surprised to discover that they slept much longer than they thought. AIDS was initially known by several provisional names while doctors were trying to understand the disease and its causes. One of those early terms was GRID, which stands for Gay-Related Immune Deficiency. However, as research progressed, it became clear that the disease could affect people of any background. As a result, the name Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, or AIDS, was adopted as a more accurate and widely accepted medical term. The Golden Buddha statue in Thailand was originally covered with a layer of stucco and colored glass to hide its true value. In 1955, while the statue was being relocated, the plaster chipped away and revealed the gold beneath. The Pan-American Highway system connecting Alaska to Argentina is the longest road network in the world. Along the route, there is a break of more than 60 miles known as the Darien Gap, which requires a 4-day trek to cross. There was an elite force of soldiers in 4th century Thebes known as the Sacred Band of Thebes. It was composed of 300 male lovers, or 150 couples, who brought an end to Spartan dominance in Greece. During the 1940s, there was an exclusive men's lounge club at the Walt Disney Studios for top animators that included a rooftop terrace where they would sunbathe nude. They had to stop when it was discovered that nuns from the neighboring hospital were watching them. The city of Shanghai is home to more people than 8 of the largest cities in the United States combined. With a population of more than 20 million residents, it is one of the largest and most dynamic urban centers in the world. In addition to its size, Shanghai is known for having one of the busiest cargo ports on the planet and an extensive public transportation network that includes hundreds of miles of subway lines. Its remarkable growth over the past few decades has transformed the city's skyline, where modern skyscrapers stand alongside historic neighborhoods and buildings that reflect different stages of its development. The inspiration behind Professor Snape in Harry Potter was a British chemistry teacher named John Nettleship. At first, Nettleship was annoyed by the comparison, but he later came to accept it and even wrote a book about it. Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead worked for Jimi Hendrix as both a roadie and a supplier of drugs for post-concert parties during the 1960s. Lemmy later recalled being able to watch Hendrix perform constantly, often twice a night for about 3 months. During World War II, the musical instrument manufacturer Yamaha participated in the construction of war machinery. When the war ended, they repurposed that machinery to build motorcycles. That is why Yamaha makes both pianos and motorcycles. Beekeeping suits are white because bees appear to have developed a more aggressive defensive response toward dark figures approaching their nests, while white suits help counteract that reaction. Beekeepers also tend to avoid wearing dark clothing underneath their suits for the same reason. In addition to their color, these suits are made with thick materials and protective layers that make it difficult for stingers to reach the skin. Bees use visual and chemical signals to identify potential threats, so beekeepers also try to move calmly around hives. Gentle handling reduces stress on the colony and makes inspections and honey collection easier. The first aircraft carrier landing was performed without arresting cables to stop the airplane. Instead, men on deck had to grab ropes attached to the aircraft. When it comes to air travel, many people believe that if one person is sick on an airplane, the other passengers will get sick as well. However, most airplanes have powerful HEPA air filtration systems that recirculate cabin air and mix it with fresh air. Missing children were removed from milk cartons because the threat was largely exaggerated. The program was mostly ineffective. There were no clear standards for what qualified as missing. It was emotionally distressing for families, and it was often driven by tax incentives. 90% of video game sales in 2022 were digital. There is something known as desperation pies, which are defined by inexpensive and basic ingredients used in the filling. These types of pies were popular during economic depressions, the world wars, and before refrigeration. Varieties include green tomato pie, molasses pie, chess pie, and vinegar pie. Created in 2000 by the Mexican government, Piso Firme is a project that replaced dirt floors with concrete floors in underserved areas of Mexico. Replacing the flooring actually improved the health and happiness of residents, as well as the communication skills and vocabulary of their children. The number of bank tellers in the United States increased from approximately 300,000 to 600,000 between 1972 and 2010, despite the expansion of automated teller machines. Although this may seem contradictory, automation reduced certain operating costs and allowed banks to open more branches, creating greater demand for employees to perform tasks that could not be easily automated. The television series Downton Abbey was originally going to be a spin-off of the 2001 film Gosford Park, but writer and creator Julian Fellowes developed it as an independent production set decades earlier. The first movie about the Titanic starred an actress who actually survived the sinking of the real Titanic. Dorothy Gibson was playing bridge when the ship struck the iceberg and escaped in the first lifeboat. She later starred in Saved from the Titanic, wearing the same clothes she had worn aboard the Titanic. A study by the organization Zippia found that your college major affects your marriage rate. Between 70 and 80% of people majoring in education, plant science, and microbiology will be married by age 30. The least likely majors are geography, theater arts, music, philosophy, and international relations, with rates ranging from about 32 to 46%. Because their sense of smell is so powerful, some dogs can be trained to detect medical conditions. They can be used either to diagnose a specific condition or to alert their owners when they need medication. Mattel once made a vibrating Harry Potter broomstick, a toy that was intended to let children pretend they were flying on it. However, they were forced to discontinue the toy after adult stores in Times Square began selling them for twice their original retail price. The Roman scholar Marcus Terentius Varro correctly speculated about the existence of germs thousands of years before their actual discovery. Two new species were discovered in the Montreal biodome. One was a mite in 1996, and the other was a bacterium in 2003. Many haunted houses have been investigated and found to contain high levels of carbon monoxide or other toxins that can cause hallucinations. The carbon monoxide theory helps explain why haunted houses are often older buildings and why people report seeing ghosts in them. The Czech Republic is home to the largest castle complex in the world, known as Prague Castle. The complex covers more than 750,000 square feet and includes numerous palaces, churches, and gardens. It has served as the seat of Czech rulers for more than 1,000 years. In 1900, the average life expectancy of non-white people in the United States was only 33 years, while the reported life expectancy of white people was 47 years. The Navy once contacted the Village People to use them in a Navy advertising campaign for television and radio. The group granted the rights to the song free of charge on the condition that the Navy help them film the music video. The Navy provided a warship and several aircraft, but ultimately chose to stick with the traditional song, Anchors Aweigh. Greece has the largest merchant fleet in the world, surpassing even those of the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. Bollywood actor Amir Khan was 45 years old when he played an 18-year-old engineering student in the film 3 Idiots. He said the only reason he made the movie was because it was about education, and he later admitted that he should not have acted in it. Arsenic is commonly used in the treatment of certain types of leukemia. Although it is often associated with poison, certain arsenic-derived compounds have proven highly effective in treating acute promyelocytic leukemia, a specific form of blood cancer. When administered in carefully controlled doses and under medical supervision, it can help destroy cancer cells and significantly improve survival rates. The curb cut effect is a phenomenon in which accessibility features designed for people with disabilities also benefit people without disabilities. One example is that many people with normal hearing use closed captions. The idea is that when things are designed for disabilities, they end up improving life for everyone. According to Smithsonian Magazine, the average human body temperature is actually decreasing and becoming cooler. In a 1992 study, scientists at the University of Maryland measured an average temperature of 36.8 degrees Celsius in 148 patients. In 2017, a study of 35,000 British patients recorded an average temperature of 36.6 degrees Celsius. Experts wondered whether the measurements were inaccurate, but they were correct. The PlayStation 2 continued to be manufactured until 2013, giving it one of the longest lifespans of any video game console. During its remarkable run, it sold more than 150 million units worldwide and became the best-selling video game console in history. Part of its success came from its enormous game library, which included thousands of titles across virtually every genre imaginable. In addition, the console could play DVDs, a highly attractive feature at a time when standalone DVD players were still a significant expense for many households. According to Pedigree.com, the human age equivalent of a dog's first year of life is 15 years, even though they are still considered puppies. A Chinese billionaire named Liu Yiqian, who is also a former taxi driver, purchased a $170 million painting with his American Express card. With that single swipe, he earned enough reward points for a lifetime of first-class travel with his family. Rapper Pusha T wrote the famous McDonald's "I'm Lovin' It" jingle that Justin Timberlake sang during the fast food chain's 2003 advertising campaign. Indoor pollutants can be 2 to 5 times higher than outdoor levels, and in some cases, those levels can exceed outdoor concentrations of the same pollutants by more than 100 times. The Ford F-150 is the 9th most popular vehicle in the world, despite having virtually no sales outside the United States. The only other American vehicles in the top 10 are Teslas, which are sold globally. Edgar Allan Poe once wrote an article for Graham's magazine in 1848 in which he emphasized the importance of the dash in punctuation and its usefulness in giving rhythm and clarity to writing. Before 2011, if a member of the British royal family married a Roman Catholic, that person was excluded from the line of succession. The largest parking lot in the world is located at West Edmonton Mall in Canada and has 20,000 parking spaces, while an adjacent overflow lot provides 10,000 more. According to Bloomberg, 17 Americans become millionaires every day. Since 2016, there have been at least 3.1 million new millionaires in the United States. There is only one species of gilled mushroom that grows underwater, called Satharella aquatica, which was first discovered in 2005. In the original German ending of the fairy tale Snow White, the evil queen is forced to put on red-hot iron shoes and dance until she dies. Batman creator Bob Kane originally designed the Bat costume as a red jumpsuit with bat wings and a small black domino mask that revealed Bruce Wayne's blonde hair. It was actually Bill Finger who designed the darker costume and the cowl we know today. John Adams defended a group of men involved in the Boston Massacre and succeeded in having 6 of them acquitted. Before becoming the United States, in 1752, the British colonies in America did not have the dates from September 3rd through September 13th because they were transitioning from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Kellogg's Rice Krispies breakfast cereal is also known as Rice Bubbles in Australia and New Zealand. The Romans had the world's first newspaper, called Acta Diurna, or Daily Events, in 59 before Christ. Although no copies of the publication have survived, it is widely believed that it contained reports, events, assemblies, births, deaths, and daily gossip. Michael Jackson's song, "You Are Not Alone," is actually banned in Belgium because a court concluded that it was possible that R. Kelly, who wrote the song, had plagiarized Belgian songwriting brothers Eddie and Danny Van Passel. There is a pyramid currently being built in Germany called the Time Pyramid, which is scheduled to be completed in the year 3183. It consists of 7-ton concrete blocks placed every 10 years, and the 4th block was installed on September 9, 2023. A bank in northern Italy called Credito Emiliano has been accepting large wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese as collateral for loans to small businesses since 1953. The oil on the surface of the nose is called nasal sebum, and it can be used to break the foam in a glass of beer with too much head. There's actually a 4th monkey in the famous group of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil monkeys. It is the monkey of do no evil, and it is covering its genitals. There is at least one species of shy grasshopper that transforms into an aggressive locust and eats everything in its path if it is injected with serotonin. They become stronger, darker, and far more mobile than their former small green selves. Highway hypnosis, also known as white line fever, is an altered mental state in which a person can drive a car or truck over long distances while responding to external events in the expected, safe, and correct manner without remembering having done so consciously. This phenomenon is commonly associated with long trips, familiar routes, and visually repetitive environments that require few changes in attention. Although the driver remains awake and continues processing information from the surroundings, they may experience the sensation of having arrived at their destination without clearly remembering parts of the journey. Orcas have a culture that they pass down to their young, and they also have variations in their vocalizations that are similar to human languages and dialects. They can also live for more than 60 years. Different groups of orcas use distinctive sounds that researchers can identify and associate with specific families or populations. In addition, hunting techniques, migration routes, and certain social behaviors are taught from one generation to the next. Some populations specialize in catching fish, while others hunt marine mammals using highly complex cooperative strategies. According to the Department of Energy, more than 80,000 dams in the United States do not generate electricity, and 54,000 of them could add 12 gigawatts of total hydropower capacity. This would be enough to supply 4 million homes. In 2018, 6 doctors devised an experiment in which each swallowed a Lego minifigure head as a way to determine the typical transit time of a commonly swallowed object. They then published their findings using a found and retrieved time score, or FART score. The average score was 1.71 days. 4 brothers from New York fought in World War II and became known as the Nyland brothers. 2 died in combat. 1 survived, and 1 was believed to be dead but had actually survived the war and was being held in a Japanese prisoner of war camp in Burma. Their story inspired Saving Private Ryan. There are 20 mountains in the world that are more than 23,000 feet, or 7,000 meters tall, that have never been climbed. The United Nations projects that the world's population will continue growing over the coming decades and could reach around 10 billion people by the end of this century. After that period, population growth is expected to slow considerably, and the global population may stabilize or even begin to decline gradually. Marc-Antoine Fardin published a paper in which he cited photographs of cats in jars, baskets, and salad bowls, concluding that cats possess the properties of both solids and liquids. For this work, he received the Ig Nobel Prize in Physics in 2017. Rednecks, the creators of the 1990s hit Cotton Eye Joe, are actually a Swedish musical group. Antilia is a private residence located in Mumbai's billionaire district and is one of the most expensive private homes in the world, with a cost exceeding $1 billion. It is the residence of Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani and his family, who moved into the 27-story home in 2012. It requires 600 staff members and includes parking for 168 cars, 9 elevators, a theater, a swimming pool, a ballroom, and a snow room. Limp Bizkit was intended to be a terrible name so that people would look at the album, see the name, and think it sounded awful. Making fun of themselves has been a recurring theme throughout the band's entire career. Smarties in the United States, Rockets in Canada, and Fizzers, or Love Hearts, in the United Kingdom and Australia are all the same candy. To make things even more confusing, Smarties in Canada are actually candy-coated chocolate pieces. They are not the same as M&Ms. They are quite different and considered by many to be more delicious. When the 1 billionth song was downloaded from iTunes, Steve Jobs personally called the person who bought the song and rewarded them with a 20-inch iMac, 10 fifth-generation iPods, and a $10,000 iTunes gift card. Lieutenant Marcus McDilda was an American P-51 fighter pilot who was shot down over Osaka and captured by the Japanese on August 8, 1945, 2 days after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. He told them he knew nothing about it, but when they threatened to kill him, he revealed that the United States had hundreds of such bombs, and that Tokyo and Kyoto were next. Cotton candy was invented by a dentist. Dentist William Morrison partnered with confectioner John C. Wharton to invent the machine that makes cotton candy as we know it today. At the time, the airy spun sugar treat was called fairy floss. Pilot fish are capable of forming such a close relationship with sharks that if their host shark is captured, they will follow the boat and appear distressed. These fish often swim alongside sharks, rays, and large sea turtles, gaining protection from predators and feeding on leftover scraps of food. In return, they help clean small parasites and debris from the skin of their hosts. Their bond with sharks has been observed for centuries by sailors and fishermen, who gave them the name pilot fish because they seemed to guide the large predators through the ocean. Pennsylvania allows vertically oriented motorcycle license plates, with the numbers read from top to bottom instead of left to right. Iceland does not have and has never had a public railway system, yet somehow it has experienced 3 separate train accidents. Russia arrived 12 days late to the 1908 Olympic Games in London, England, because it was still using the Julian calendar rather than the Gregorian calendar. Club dei Brutti, also known as the World Association of Ugly People, based in the Italian town of Piobico, has 30,000 members worldwide and advocates for recognizing the value of people considered unattractive. Glaciers and volcanism have an inverse relationship. Throughout the volcanic record, eruptions declined significantly as the planet cooled and ice expanded. Conversely, as glaciers melt and erode the land beneath them, humans should expect to see increased volcanic activity around the world. When the Persian philosopher and physician Al-Razi was looking for the best place to build a hospital in Baghdad, he hung pieces of meat throughout the city. He decided that the hospital should be built where the meat spoiled the most slowly. In 2016, a rat entered an automated teller machine in Guwahati, India, and ate $19,000 in cash. An estimated 200,000 to 600,000 pets were left behind during evacuations for Hurricane Katrina in 2005. This happened because people were not allowed to bring pets with them, and pets were not permitted in emergency shelters. George Clooney is the nephew of Jose Ferrer, the first Hispanic actor to win an Academy Award. Ashkenazi Jews living today can trace their roots back to a group of around 350 people who lived between 600 and 800 years ago. An entire bird species became extinct because of World War II. The Wake Island rail was a flightless bird native to Wake and Wilkes Islands, and it was hunted to extinction during the war. According to the World Bank, Canada produces the largest amount of waste per capita in the world. Bulgaria ranks second on the list, and the United States is surprisingly in third place. Steve Jobs is buried in an unmarked grave. It is located at Alta Mesa Memorial Park, a non-denominational cemetery in Palo Alto, Santa Clara County, California. The original film reels of Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz are stored 650 feet underground in a vault in Kansas, along with other classic films. One of the oldest forms of biological warfare was used by the Mongols, who would catapult plague-infected bodies over city walls in order to infect their enemies. The Knights Templar invented the banking system by storing people's cash at the Temple Church in London and providing them with letters of credit in return. Tupac and Michael Jackson almost collaborated on a song, but the project fell apart when Jackson failed to show up for a recording session. On May 3, 2008, activists in the European nation of Estonia organized and cleaned up 10,000 tons of waste and trash across the country in a single day. NASA operates some of the fastest data transfer networks in the world, capable of reaching speeds of tens of gigabytes per second at certain research facilities. To put that into perspective, these specialized connections can be hundreds or even thousands of times faster than an average home internet connection, allowing enormous amounts of scientific data to be transferred in a matter of seconds. When astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson was a teenager, he walked dogs for 50 cents each. He saved $200 from that money and bought his first real telescope at the age of 14. Archduke Franz Ferdinand killed nearly 300,000 creatures. Ferdinand was an avid hunter and recorded his kills in a massive journal. A man named Felix Gretarsson from Iceland lost both of his arms in a workplace accident. He received a successful double arm and shoulder transplant, which was the first procedure of its kind in the world. Henry Ford used leftover pieces of wood from Model T automobile production to make charcoal briquettes. He originally called it Ford Charcoal, but the name was later changed to Kingsford Charcoal after Ford's plant in Iron Mountain closed in 1951. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have recommended that middle schools and high schools start later because of chronic sleep deprivation. Studies have shown that later start times would help students perform better, as up to 2/3 of high school students do not get enough sleep. Researchers at the University of Wyoming have developed a way to incorporate spider silk spinning genes into goats, allowing those goats to produce silk protein in their milk. Al Green earned more royalties from the Big Mouth Billy Bass wall-mounted toy than from anything else, thanks to his song, Take Me to the River. In 1985, during the Cold War, United States President Ronald Reagan and Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev made a pact to set aside their countries' differences and unite their militaries if an extraterrestrial invasion ever occurred. -40 degrees Celsius is exactly the same as -40 degrees Fahrenheit. One of the largest cruise ships in the world, Wonder of the Seas, is 35% longer and 127% wider than the Titanic, and it is currently in service. If you sneeze hard enough, it is possible to fracture a rib, but if you suppress a powerful sneeze, it is also possible to rupture a blood vessel in the head or neck and die. There is a species of shark that can walk on land. Epaulet sharks measure approximately 3 feet in length and have paddle-shaped fins that they use to walk, either along the ocean floor or across dry land for short periods. Ancient Romans commonly used ground mouse brains combined with baking soda as a form of toothpaste to clean their teeth. The brown snake eagle is a bird specifically adapted to hunting a variety of venomous snakes, such as the puff adder, and is known to prey even on adult black mambas. Its legs are covered with thick scales that help protect it from bites, while its excellent eyesight allows it to spot reptiles from great heights. Once it locates its prey, it can dive with remarkable precision and seize it before it has a chance to defend itself. Although snakes make up a significant part of its diet, it can also capture lizards and other small animals. Liberia continues to face a significant shortage of mental health professionals. Although the number of specialists has increased over time, the country still has very few psychiatrists serving a population of millions of people, making access to psychiatric care a major challenge for much of the population. According to a study of 33 surgeons conducted by Beth Israel Medical Center in New York, surgeons who play video games operate 27% faster and make 37% fewer errors. Before password protection became common, IBM computers had a physical key lock. The function of these locks varied from disabling keyboard input, locking the power switch in the off position, and preventing the computer case from being opened. Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill Wilson believed that LSD could help alcoholics stop drinking. That perfect swirl of toothpaste seen on boxes and in advertisements is called a nurdle. Companies such as Colgate and Glaxo have even sued each other over the use of the nurdle. Oprah Winfrey's real name is Orpah, but it was misspelled on her birth certificate, and she has gone by Oprah ever since. Actress Winona Ryder was named after Winona, Minnesota, where she was born on October 29, 1972. However, her hometown is Petaluma, California. In the ancient Maya civilization, to enhance the effects of sacred alcoholic beverages, people sometimes consumed them in ways that many would consider unconventional, including through an enema. The United States Secret Service was originally created in 1865 to combat counterfeiting and was not assigned the task of protecting the president until 1901. The largest desert in the world is not the Sahara, but the Antarctic Desert, which covers an area of more than 5.3 million square miles. There are more cheerleading injuries each year in high schools than injuries from lacrosse and rugby combined. The most common high school sport in which injuries occur is basketball, with ankle sprains being especially common. Cyclone Olivia, which struck Australia in 1996, recorded wind speeds of more than 254 miles per hour. This remains the fastest non-tornadic surface wind speed ever observed on Earth. The largest diamond ever discovered was the Cullinan diamond, which weighed more than 3,000 carats. It was found in Transvaal, South Africa in 1905 and was presented as a birthday gift to King Edward VII of England by the Transvaal government. Physicist Richard Feynman had synesthesia, which meant that he saw different colors in the equations he taught or solved. Feynman commented on several occasions that certain mathematical symbols and letters produced specific visual impressions for him, an experience that had accompanied him since childhood. Synesthesia is a neurological condition in which stimulation of one sense automatically triggers associated perceptions in another, such as seeing colors when reading numbers or hearing sounds. Although it is not considered a supernatural ability, many famous artists, musicians, and scientists have described similar experiences, which has generated significant interest among researchers who study human perception and how the brain works. The estrogen found in birth control pills is sometimes excreted in human waste, which can end up in municipal wastewater and eventually in the environment. As a result, some species of male fish are becoming feminized. Switzerland has a law that prohibits owning just one guinea pig. This is because guinea pigs are social animals that live in groups and need companionship to avoid loneliness. The law was passed in 2008 to protect the welfare of these small furry creatures. Before her death, Queen Elizabeth II left a secret letter that cannot be opened until 2085. Curiously, the letter is not addressed to the royal family or the British government, but to the future residents of Sydney. It was written during an official visit to Australia and remains stored in a vault inside a historic building in the city. Not even the officials responsible for safeguarding it know its contents. The only visible instruction is that, on the specified date, the mayor of Sydney must open the envelope and read the message to the citizens of that time. Seahorse pairs greet each other every morning with a unique dance that sometimes involves changing color. The pair strolls and twirls together for several minutes before separating for the rest of the day. The Food and Drug Administration does not consider Palmer chocolate, commonly sold in Dollar Tree stores, to be real chocolate. The Food and Drug Administration lists 15 different subcategories under the main category of cocoa products. Paper airplanes were invented long before the word airplane existed. In fact, children and adults of all ages have been folding and flying paper airplanes for more than 150 years. The earliest designs appeared decades before humans achieved powered flight, when paper was already being used to make kites and other flying objects. As aviation began to develop, paper airplanes became a simple way to experiment with balance, lift, and air resistance. Even today, some designers and enthusiasts create remarkably complex models capable of staying aloft for long periods or traveling great distances. Betty Crocker was never a real person, but merely a mascot for General Mills. The word jazz is statistically the most difficult word to guess in the game of Hangman. This is because it is a short word, contains only one vowel, and uses the letters J and Z, which people rarely guess in the game. Polygamy is legally permitted in 58 out of roughly 200 countries, including much of Africa and many Middle Eastern nations. However, its practice remains relatively uncommon on a global scale, as only a small fraction of the population lives in polygamous households. In most countries where it is legal, there are specific rules that limit who may enter into multiple marriages and under what conditions. The highest concentration of polygamous marriages is found in certain regions of West and Central Africa, where this tradition has been part of some cultures for generations. American yellow mustard was first introduced in 1904 by George J. French as cream salad mustard. Its distinctive bright yellow color comes primarily from turmeric, a spice that also contributes part of its flavor and appearance. The mustard quickly gained popularity after being introduced at the St. Louis World's Fair, where it reached a much wider audience. Over time, it became one of the most widely used condiments in the United States and a classic accompaniment to foods such as hot dogs, hamburgers, and sandwiches. There are 17 million flies for every person on Earth. They pollinate plants, consume decaying bodies, feed on sludge in drainage pipes, and perform many other useful tasks. Although they often have a bad reputation, flies play a vital role in many ecosystems by helping recycle nutrients and accelerating the decomposition of organic matter. Many species also serve as food for birds, amphibians, reptiles, fish, and other insects. Some are highly effective pollinators, especially in colder regions or during times of the year when bees are less active. Without them, many essential natural processes would become much slower and less efficient. Because Major League Baseball uniforms were made of wool, many players became hot and uncomfortable during the peak summer months. To combat this problem, Hall of Famer Babe Ruth used frozen cabbage leaves under his cap during games to keep his head cool. He replaced them every 2 innings. In 2001, an artist covered a house in Powell, Wyoming with 10,000 pounds of government-issued pepper jack cheese. The town was so excited about the cheese house that it even organized a parade and crowned a cheese king and queen. Bill Lear, the creator of the Learjet, also invented the 8-track tape cartridge in 1964. It was originally called the Learjet Stereo 8 cartridge. 30 years ago, people had 15 to 17 minutes to escape a house fire. But today, they typically have only 3 to 5 minutes, because homes contain more plastics and petroleum-based products, as well as more open floor plans, larger rooms, and higher ceilings. Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake." According to historian Lady Antonia Fraser, the phrase would have been very uncharacteristic of Marie Antoinette. Owen Wilson has said the word "wow" a total of 81 times across 27 movies. With credits in 52 films, he says that word in 52% of his movies. Extreme ironing is a sport in which people travel to remote locations with ironing boards and iron clothes. The sport was created by Tony Hyam in 1980 in Yorkshire Dales National Park in England while he was camping. Approximately 13% of people who finish the Boston Marathon suffer from hyponatremia caused by excessive fluid consumption, a condition in which the concentration of sodium in the blood becomes abnormally low. If you could bring a tablespoon of a neutron star back to Earth, it would weigh 1 billion tons, or roughly the equivalent of Mount Everest. Nokia was founded less than a month after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. Although Babe Ruth did not have an extensive formal education, he spoke German very well because both his mother and father had German roots. Historian Fred Lieb once tried to speak with Ruth's teammate Lou Gehrig in German, but Babe kept jumping in and interrupting them. The number of priests in the United States has declined by 60% over the past 50 years, leaving more than 3,500 churches without one. The Woolworth Company was a 5-and-dime store chain during the 20th century that did not go bankrupt but simply changed its name to that of its most profitable division, Foot Locker. Most Japanese schools do not employ janitors or cleaning staff. The Japanese education system believes that requiring students to clean the school themselves teaches respect, responsibility, and emphasizes equality. Singer Kesha was born with a 1/4-inch vestigial tail. She says it was removed and that she feels very sad about the story. Tina Turner renounced her United States citizenship in 2013 and lived in Switzerland for nearly 30 years until her death. John Pemberton was a Confederate officer who became addicted to morphine after receiving a saber wound. Pemberton created a series of mixtures in an attempt to cure his addiction. His experiments with coca and cola resulted in Pemberton's French wine coca, and later, Coca-Cola. Kleenex tissues were originally intended for use in gas masks. The brand began during World War I, when Kimberly-Clark developed a crepe paper material used as a filter inside gas masks. The Adirondack chair has a slanted seat because it was designed to sit level when placed facing downhill on a steep slope. The chair was designed at Thomas Lee's summer home in the Adirondack Mountains in 1903. Germans predominantly eat sweet popcorn instead of salted popcorn, often made with caramelized sugar. The famous Grand Slam breakfast was introduced in 1977 in Atlanta in honor of baseball legend Hank Aaron, who retired that year. Jacob Nacken was the tallest German soldier in World War II, standing 7 feet 3 inches tall, or about 7¼ feet. Argentina was named after the Latin word for silver, argentum. It received its name because the region was believed to be rich in silver, a belief that dates back to the earliest voyages made by Spanish and Portuguese explorers to the Rio de la Plata in the early 16th century. When Denny's restaurants closed for the first time in their history on Christmas Day in 1988, many of the locations did not have locks on their doors because they were always open. Speaking of Denny's, bees can be blue. The blue carpenter bee is not aggressive and is semi-solitary. Rather than building hives like honeybees, it prefers to live in dead wood and can be found throughout Southeast Asia, India, and southern China. Freshwater mussels begin their lives as parasitic larvae known as glochidia. When these mussel larvae are released by their mother, they must find a suitable host fish in order to develop, so they attach themselves to the fish's gills. During the 1970s, North Korea purchased thousands of Volvo cars, tractors, and buses from Sweden on credit. They still have not paid for them, and many of the cars, tractors, and buses are still in use today. Seagulls are an endangered species in New Zealand, with fewer than 100,000 remaining. A postal worker named William Santiago was fired after 27 years of service because he decided to keep undeliverable junk mail. The United States Postal Service actually brought charges against him, and the case went to trial, resulting in Santiago being convicted of embezzlement and mail theft. The Fast and Furious film series is called Wild Speed in Japan. Some of the titles also include major plot revelations. Over the years, Japanese distributors have added highly descriptive subtitles to attract local audiences, sometimes revealing information that remained secret in other countries until release. This practice is not unique to the franchise, as Japan has a long tradition of adapting foreign titles to make them more appealing or easier for local audiences to understand. Even so, few examples are as well known among movie fans as Wild Speed and its unusual subtitles. Every night at 10 o'clock, students in Uppsala, Sweden let out a collective scream to cope with the demands of university life. This is known as the Flogsta scream. There is a town in Arizona called Nothing, located about 2 hours northwest of Phoenix, and there was nothing there. Literally nobody lives there. The state of South Dakota places fatal crash markers at the sites of deadly automobile accidents to help prevent future accidents. They are durable signs that say "think" or "why die?" and they also serve as memorials for those who lost their lives. The stage just before frostbite is known as frostnip. Although it is an injury, the skin remains flexible, and there is no permanent tissue damage unless it progresses to full frostbite. When axolotls lose a limb, they can regenerate the missing body part within a few weeks. They can regenerate almost anything, including limbs, the spinal cord, the heart, and even parts of their own brain. They can also remain in their larval form throughout their entire lives. The largest stadium in ancient Rome was called the Circus Maximus and could hold more than 150,000 spectators. It was more than 1,968 feet long, or nearly 2,000 feet in length. Godzilla's roar was created more than 60 years ago using a leather glove coated with pine tar resin. The glove was then rubbed along the string of a double bass. Jules Brunet was the historical figure who inspired the film The Last Samurai. In 1868, this decorated captain, who was also a painter, decided to remain unofficially in Japan and fight alongside the shogun's forces against the Meiji Empire. After President Kennedy's assassination in 1963, the owner of the Texas School Book Depository building had the infamous window associated with the alleged sniper's position removed and placed on display in his private home. According to the University of the West of England, an additional 20 minutes of daily commuting is equivalent to a 17% annual pay cut. Aerosmith's famous song "Walk This Way" was inspired by the "Walk This Way" joke from the film Young Frankenstein. When the Tron arcade game was released after the movie, It ended up earning more money than the movie itself did during its theatrical run. The production of the 1980s television series Alf was so stressful that Max Wright, who played Father Willie Tanner, physically attacked Alf on one occasion. The producers had to intervene and pull Wright away from Alf. Two Buddhists attempted to purchase crustaceans and release them into the ocean, which caused damage to the ecosystem because they were non-native species. On December 2, 1942, scientists at the University of Chicago produced the first controlled nuclear chain reaction in human history. The experiment took place in a facility known as Chicago Pile 1, built beneath the stands of a university stadium. Led by Enrico Fermi and his team, the achievement demonstrated that it was possible to safely control a sustained nuclear reaction. This event marked the beginning of the nuclear age and paved the way for both the development of reactors designed to generate electricity and major advances in scientific and medical research during the decades that followed. The early 2000s Nickelodeon children's show LazyTown was not only filmed in Iceland, but it was also one of the most expensive children's programs ever created. Each episode cost nearly $1 million. Much of that budget went toward elaborate sets, visual effects, puppetry, stunts, and advanced digital technology for the time. The series was created by Magnus Scheving, who also played the character Sportacus. Although it was aimed at children, the show gained fans of all ages thanks to its unique visual style, catchy songs, and message promoting physical activity, healthy eating, and active lifestyles. Citizens of Singapore who do not register as organ donors are placed at a lower priority for receiving an organ transplant than those who do register. Healthy guinea pigs produce at least 50 fecal pellets a day. In reality, the number is usually much higher and can reach several hundred pellets daily because these small rodents spend much of their time eating hay and other fiber-rich vegetation. Their digestive system is designed to function almost continuously, so a steady production of droppings is generally a sign of good health. Guinea pigs also require vitamin C in their diet because, like humans, they cannot produce it themselves and must obtain it from food. James Earl Jones, who was the voice of Darth Vader, and Carrie Fisher, the actress who played Princess Leia, respectively, never met until they made brief appearances in Season 7, Episode 14 of The Big Bang Theory, 37 years later. In the original Star Wars trilogy, in Episode 5, Emperor Palpatine was actually portrayed by Marjorie Eaton, wearing heavy makeup as a stand-in. The eyes of a chimpanzee were also superimposed over her darkened eye sockets during post-production, and the voice was provided by musical theater actor Clive Revill. Eminem holds the record for the fastest rap verse, rapping 11 syllables per second, or 222 words in 30 seconds, during the third verse of his song Godzilla. In more than 50 years of Japan's bullet train system, there has never been a single passenger death or injury caused by a train accident. The Shinkansen network began operating in 1964 and has since transported billions of passengers while maintaining one of the best safety records in the world. Its trains are equipped with systems capable of detecting earthquakes and activating emergency braking within seconds. In addition to its safety, the system is famous for its punctuality, as average delays are often measured in seconds rather than minutes. Turkeys really do blush when they are excited. The bare skin on their heads and necks can rapidly change color, shifting through shades of red, white, and blue, depending on their mood or level of excitement. These changes are especially common during courtship, when males try to impress females by displaying their feathers and making their characteristic sounds. Turkeys also have excellent eyesight and can detect movement from great distances. In addition, they are capable of flying at surprisingly high speeds over short distances and often spend the night perched in trees to stay away from potential predators. As of 2018, there were still a few McDonald's locations in the United States, specifically in Florida, that sold fried apple pies. Now they are all baked. The world's largest Lego replica of the Titanic was built over an 11-month period by a 10-year-old autistic boy from Iceland. Teachers in ancient Egypt used red ink to correct their students' spelling mistakes, much like teachers do today. Red was also used by scribes and officials to highlight important words, titles, warnings, and special sections within texts. Students practiced writing by copying long lists of symbols and administrative documents onto fragments of limestone or pottery, known as ostraka, which served as practice material. The training of scribes was highly valued because mastering reading and writing could open the door to prestigious administrative positions within Egyptian society. The ashes of Clyde Tombaugh, the man who discovered Pluto in 1930, are aboard the New Horizons spacecraft and passed by the planet in 2015. George Washington left what is now the United States only once in his lifetime, when he traveled to Barbados with his brother in 1751. NASA discovered that only 40 digits of pi are needed to accurately calculate the circumference of the observable universe within the width of a hydrogen atom. Although pi is an irrational number with an infinite number of decimal places, only a small fraction of them is needed for most scientific and engineering applications. In fact, just a few decimal places are enough to calculate spaceflight trajectories, build bridges, or make extremely precise astronomical measurements. This fact puts into perspective how extraordinarily precise the value of pi can be, even when only a few dozen of its infinite digits are used. English speakers originally proposed abbreviating Coordinated Universal Time as CUT. French speakers proposed abbreviating it as TUC, for Temps Universel Coordonné. Neither side got what it wanted, and the official abbreviation is now UTC. Radiotrophic fungi were discovered growing inside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1991. These fungi feed on gamma radiation and convert it into chemical energy for growth. Researchers found several species containing large amounts of melanin, the same pigment found in human skin. Later studies suggested that this compound may help fungi take advantage of environments with high levels of radiation. Kevin Hines once attempted to end his life by jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Except he was rescued by a sea lion that pushed him and kept him afloat until he was rescued by the Coast Guard. Miraculously, he survived and is now a mental health awareness speaker. Jack White of the White Stripes originally wanted to save the guitar riff used in Seven Nation Army in case he ever had the opportunity to create a James Bond theme song. 5 years after the song's release, he wrote the theme for the 2008 Bond film Quantum of Solace. In 2000, Billy Earl Dade High School in Dallas, Texas, organized an event called Breakfast with Dads, but administrators noticed that not all students had fathers or father figures who could attend. They posted a message on Facebook looking for about 50 volunteers, and on the day of the event, more than 600 men showed up to help. Balaji Badejo played the xenomorph in the film Alien in 1979. Standing at 6 feet 7 inches tall, the Nigerian visual artist's height and slender build convinced Ridley Scott that he was the perfect choice for the villain. There is a condition known as vasovagal syncope, which refers to a sudden loss or near loss of consciousness caused by an emotional or environmental trigger, such as the sight of blood or needles. Before fainting, many people experience warning signs such as dizziness, sweating, nausea, blurred vision, or a feeling of warmth. It is one of the most common causes of fainting and, in most cases, does not cause lasting effects. Doctors believe it occurs when an exaggerated response of the nervous system causes a temporary drop in blood pressure and heart rate, briefly reducing blood flow to the brain. The Bonacon is a mythical medieval beast that was said to defend itself with explosive bowel movements. According to legend, the animal's waste could be expelled with such force that it could hit targets from more than a football field away. According to Stanford Magazine, a reusable shopping bag must be used at least 131 times to be beneficial for the planet and reduce the production of plastic bags. The exact number can vary depending on the material the bag is made from, as well as the energy and resources used during its production. Reusable cotton bags generally require more water and raw materials to manufacture than conventional plastic bags, so their environmental impact improves the longer they remain in use. For this reason, many experts recommend using them for years and replacing them only when truly necessary. Austria's coat of arms is the last one in Europe to incorporate a sickle and a hammer. However, these symbols do not represent communism in Austria's case. The sickle symbolizes farmers, the hammer represents industrial workers, and the mural crown worn by the eagle represents the citizenry. After World War II, broken chains were also added to the eagle's legs to commemorate the country's liberation from Nazi rule. The current design is one of the most recognizable national coats of arms in Europe and has remained virtually unchanged for decades. Ringo Starr had tuberculosis as a child and spent 2 years recovering in a sanatorium. To entertain himself, he used a wooden spool to tap on objects, and that is how he developed his love of drumming. Art Spiegelman, best known for the Pulitzer Prize-winning graphic novel Mouse, also created the Garbage Pail Kids trading card series. NBA legend Paul Pierce was stabbed 11 times in 2000, and still played every game of the 2001 season. In 1986, the band Motorhead set records by reaching 130 decibels during a concert. The music was so loud that it damaged the ceiling of Cleveland's Variety Theater. In 2022, a chess-playing robot in Moscow broke the finger of its 7-year-old human opponent after the child made a quick move without waiting for the robot to complete its turn. Alexander Fleming warned the public about the dangers of overusing antibiotics while accepting his Nobel Prize for the discovery of penicillin in 1945. During his speech, he pointed out that the improper use of these medicines could allow bacteria to develop resistance, a concern that decades later would become one of the greatest challenges in modern medicine. Penicillin revolutionized the treatment of infections that had previously been frequently fatal and helped save millions of lives during and after World War II, permanently transforming medical practice around the world. The vast majority of Earth's mantle is not magma, but solid rock due to the extreme pressures involved. The viscosity of this rock is comparable to that of ordinary glass at room temperature, which is why plate tectonics moves at speeds measured in inches per year. The Guinness World Record for the greatest number of children born in a single birth to survive is 9 babies, known as non-uplets, and belongs to a woman from the African country of Mali. Rest in peace is the English translation of the Latin phrase requiescat in pace, and it shares the same acronym. While filming Raiders of the Lost Ark in Tunisia, most of the cast and crew came down with dysentery, including Harrison Ford. However, director Steven Spielberg did not get sick because he brought suitcases filled with cans of spaghetti and tomato sauce and lived on that food. Paradise Funeral Chapel in Michigan has a drive-through viewing window. Visitors can view the deceased through a window and pay their respects. There is also a guest book and a memorial drop box for leaving cards. James Cole of the University of Brighton discovered that human flesh is much less nutritious than pork or wild game meat, and that the average human body contains about 75 pounds of edible meat. Martha's Vineyard is one of only 5 natural geographic place names that the United States Board on Geographic Names has allowed to retain an apostrophe. Diana Budisavljevic, also known as the female Schindler, carried out one of the largest humanitarian efforts of World War II by saving more than 7,700 children from concentration camps in what is now Croatia. Switzerland is the only country in the world that recognizes the dignity of plants in its constitution, because plants are living beings and are therefore considered to possess dignity.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.